Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we get started, please hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload. Follow me on Instagram at Maddie's_mood_swings. As you guys can see, Luna is joining today. Anyway, let's jump right into today's video. I want to do the part 2. I'm going to do the part 2 to my toxic relationship. So if you haven't seen it, the link to that will be in the description box below. And if you haven't seen it, you probably want to go see that first because this will make more sense to you. All right, so let's jump in. So I left off in the point where I broke up, and I named him Bob because I couldn't think of anything else. I broke up with Bob. I was in a super toxic relationship with him. We were in a relationship for 5 years. I started when I was 16 till I was 20, and it got verbally abusive. I couldn't, he was super manipulative and very controlling, and I felt very suffocated. I felt like I couldn't do anything with my life, and I know that this is not okay. And this is very cowardly of me. And my get back to that was me cheating on him. Now, you should never cheat. You should be woman enough or man enough to tell the person, hey, this is not working out. I don't want to be with you anymore. Like, 2 wrongs don't make a right. You know, revenge is never the answer. You're gonna make things 100 times worse, and it's just not right. And I recognize that now. I was very young. I'm 34 years old now. We all have a past, and I didn't make smart decisions even prior to that in other aspects of life. You know, I've made mistakes of my own, and I've learned from them, and I'm in a better place mentally now. Anyway, so I broke up with him, and you know, I told him things are not working out. I'm not happy. Things are getting way worse between us because I started to become verbally abusive with him too. Like, I hated him with such a passion, and I had so much resentment towards him because I couldn't hang out with friends. I couldn't wear what I wanted. I couldn't do anything, you know, and I felt very boxed in. So I hated him with a passion at the time. So I told him, I don't want to be with you anymore. I can't stand being around you anymore. And so I broke it off. But things, you would think that we would go our separate ways. However, he began to follow me everywhere, like stalk me everywhere. I would go to the store, and there he was. I would go to the beach with my cousins, and there he was. And then I turned 21, and I started to go out with my cousins, and I would come back home at like 2 in the morning, and I was living with my dad at the time. I would come home at like 2 in the morning, and he was down the street, like at the end of the block, waiting for me. And then he would be super drunk and would be beeping outside of my dad's, that my dad would come in my room and be like, hey, Bob is outside, go see what's wrong. And then I would have to go down there and calm him down and make him leave. And my dad and my siblings, other than my younger sister, like, just saw him as a really good guy because I never showed I never argued in front of my dad. I didn't argue in front of my siblings except for my younger sister. My younger sister is my best friend, so I tell her everything. So they just assumed that he was a super nice guy at all times because they didn't know anything. So things started to get worse. Like, it was like the middle of winter, and he was messaging me like, if you don't come outside, I'm gonna do something to myself. And then I looked out the window, and he's out there sitting down in the snow, like harming himself with my earring. And I'm just like, please, come on, can you stop? Like, we're not any good together anymore. Like, can you please just try your best to move on? I'm so sorry, but things aren't gonna, we're sitting here being super toxic to one another. We don't respect each other anymore. We're calling each other every single name under the sun. Like, we're not good for each other. Please just go home, leave me alone. And I would tell him this all the time. And then I would hang out with one of my cousins that lived at the time like 40 minutes away from me. And he even followed her home thinking I was in the car with her. And she would message me like, Mari, he's right behind me. Can you please say something? Because I'm really scared now because he keeps honking. And I'm just like, leave her alone. I'm not in the car. Can you just leave? And then he didn't leave because he still thought that I was in the car with her. And then things started to escalate even more. I ended up, my cousin at the time was like, I'm going out with my boyfriend and one of his friends. Do you want to come out with us? And I'm like, sure, I don't have anything else going on. I'll go with you guys. And we go up to this liquor store, and I know the owner because I lived in Waukegan, and almost like everybody knows everybody in there. So he comes out of the store and he's like, oh, hey, Maddie, how are you? How you doing? And I say hello and all that. And then he's like, oh, Bob's in there. And he doesn't know. And we had already been separated for some months now. And he didn't know anything. Obviously, I didn't think to be like, don't tell him I'm outside. That didn't even cross my mind at the time. And so he goes inside and he must have said something like, hey, I saw Mari outside. And so he comes outside and I see him and I'm like, fuck. And so I started looking out the window so he doesn't see me because before this, just really short, before this, I had went to one of my girlfriend's places and we had just gotten to her place from a club and she had invited a guy and he assumed that I was talking to the guy and we're like literally just walking to her place and Bob comes out of nowhere and starts attacking her friend and like literally is beating him up. And I'm just sitting there like, what are you doing? Let him go, let him go. Girl, honey, that's a whole nother story. Anyway, so he was literally like off his rocker at the time. So he's looking for me in the parking lot and I'm just like looking away and I'm just sitting here thinking, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me, please. And then my cousin's like, Mari. And I'm like, I know, like, just don't pay attention. Like if you don't move, he won't see you. I don't know. And then he sees me and he rushes to the side of my window and starts punching the window because he sees obviously there's a guy in the front seat in the driver's seat and then my cousin and her boyfriend. And like, so he's like punching the window and he's like, open the fucking door, you fucking hoe. Open the fucking door. And I'm like, leave me alone. Like, stop it. Leave me alone. You're going to break his window. Stop. And then so the boyfriend's friend, we're just going to say the BF. The BF puts his hand under his seat and takes out a piece, if you know what I mean. And he takes out a piece, opens the door, rushes through the back, goes up to Bob and goes, get the fuck away from my car. People have been deleted, if you know what I mean, deleted for much less. And then I'm like, no, like, relax. And I'm looking at my cousin like, bitch, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, stop it. And she also was just shocked. So we were all in shock. And he's pointing the piece at his face. And then the owner of the liquor store comes out and has two pieces and points it at BF. And he's like, come on, BF, you know me and you have no problems. But you can't be doing this outside of my establishment. Please get in the car and come on. You know that I'm really, I'm good friends with Bob. I don't want no one to get hurt. Please get in the car. So he convinces him to get in the car. So he gets in the car. Bob runs and gets in his car. And I'm just looking at BF like, what the fuck, man? And then he's like, what? He was punching my fucking window. What did you want me to do? And And I really couldn't argue with him. I'm like, okay, whatever. I was like, take me home. I'm like, drop me the fuck home. And my place was literally like 5 minutes away from the liquor store. So he drops me off, and my cousin's like, I'm going home, and she didn't live that far from me. And she's like, meet me there. And so I rushed to my car because I already knew Bob was gonna show up. So I rushed to my car, I rushed to her place, and I leave my car there. I'm gonna have another friend of mine pick me up, and I'm gonna leave my car here because if I don't, a lot just happened, and he's gonna stay. And I was living with my dad. I was like, he's gonna go to my dad's and just create even more chaos. So I leave my car, I call a friend of mine, hey, come pick me up. I'm at my cousin's, and so we drove off. And when my friend takes me back to my cousin's to pick up my car to go home, I get dropped off, and I had literally just bought this car. I had maybe the car for a month, maybe a month and some change. Well, Bob keyed my entire car, like front to back, keyed it. And he broke the mirror, he took the air out of my tire. Like, oh man, I was just sitting there in disbelief, like, what the fuck, man? And I was just sitting there thinking, like, what am I gonna do? Like, I gotta go back home. My dad is gonna be like, what the hell happened? And they think he's such a great guy. They don't know anything. So clearly I can't hide this anymore, right? So I get home. I'm crying. I'm like, my car, I just had it for a month and some change. Like, it completely keyed. I'm talking the whole thing, man, keyed, and the mirror is like dangling off. Like, man, I was crying. And then I get home, and I'm sobbing, and my dad is pissed. He's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And then he starts looking at my car, and he starts, like, in Spanish, he starts yelling. He's like, who the fuck did this? Or what happened? Where are you coming from? And all that. And then my older brother gets there, and again, when I start saying older brother now, it is not the ones that I don't longer talk to my abusers. I have 4 older brothers. The 2 oldest are the ones that I don't talk to. So I have 2 other brothers. Anyway, one of them comes up, and he's like, what the fuck happened to your car? Like, who the fuck did this? And I'm just like crying and crying, and then I'm shaking. He's like, who did it? And then I'm like, Bob did it. And he's like, Bob? And I'm like, yeah, he did it. And my brother rushes to his car, like reverses super fast out of the parking lot and drives off. And then I get a phone call way later from Bob saying, your brother just showed up at my job and put his hands on me. So apparently my brother showed up at his job, had him by the neck, and was like, leave my sister alone. Enough is enough. She already told you she doesn't want to be with you. Stop showing up at my dad's house drunk and honking your horn. Leave her the hell alone, or else I'm going to come to your job, and this is going to happen every time, you know? So Bob starts talking crap, whatever. My brother gets back to and he wasn't staying with my dad. So my brother gets back to my dad's, and he's like, you got to put a restraining order on this dude, man. Like, he keeps bothering you. Because then I started telling them, like, you know, he continues to bother me. And my dad had already complained to my brothers that he would come to my place drunk, like, almost every day, honking the horn at all hours of the night. You know, and the neighbors started to complain. It was a mess for, like, I'm talking months he would show up, you know, and so my brother's like, you gotta put a restraining order on this dude. So I'm like, you know, I didn't want to. I felt terrible for doing it, you know, like, I was like, no, he'll be all right, he'll calm down. And then So he convinced me. I put a restraining order on him. The restraining order didn't help that, but like it didn't help really. He still was. I remember one time I gotten home, I think it was like 10 p.m. I had gotten home from a friend's house, and it was really obviously dark outside, and you could only see like the light from like the garage at the time. And I see like a shadow like moving, and it's him with like a wad of money in his hands, and he's like crying, and he's like, if you come with me, I'll give you this money. He's like, we don't even have to do anything. Like, you could just, all I want is, I just want to be next to you. Like, please. And I felt terrible, man. Like, I felt terrible to see somebody in that much pain. And I tried to be like, calm down. Like, I'm sorry, Bob. Like, things are just, they're not going to work. Please just try to move on. And he followed me a little more after that, but eventually he got the message and started to slowly like stop following me. And then, years went by, and his parents hated me after I put the restraining order on him, because his parents still didn't even know anything either. So they were like, why are there cops at my door asking for you? And all they heard is that I put a restraining order on him. So of course I was the bad one, and they didn't like me or speak to me after that. So years go by, and the dust obviously has settled, and I run into him, and he starts like apologizing for all of the pain he caused, and then I started apologizing for the cheating, for the fact that I cheated, and also for being verbally abusive. So we got to have that moment with each other where we apologized to one another and understood that we were very young, and some other really heavy stuff happened, but I'll share that on a later date. And we understood that we were both coming from, well, first of all, I was coming from trauma prior to that relationship. I was freshly out of some really heavy stuff at home, and then being involved with him added more trauma to me. It was a mess, and I'm so grateful that we got to sit down with each other years later and both apologized to each other. And I told him that I forgive him for all the BS, and that he got into a pretty bad accident, and he told me that he felt like that was his karma for all the things that he put me through. And I told him that I forgave him for everything, and that we were both young and extremely just a mess, and we left it at that. We would run into each other after that at places, because Waukegan is not that big, and you're gonna run into each other eventually, and we would say hi and bye to each other, and that was it. And guys, if you're in a situation where a person doesn't respect you anymore, and they're calling you a bunch of names under the sun, and they're cheating on you and putting their hands on you, try your best to get out of that, because things are not going to get better. Things are only going to get worse. If your loyalty and like if your trust in a relationship, I feel like trust and respect go hand in hand. If you start disrespecting your partner, the trust starts going down. And if you do something to break the trust, the respect starts going down. So if you don't have trust and respect in your relationship, you should really get out of it. And also I learned that if you were in a relationship where the person was super toxic, where you weren't even being able to like go see your friends or even be around your family, that can turn into something even more scarier, like the person putting their hands on you, or perhaps not even letting you go outside of the house or anything like that. Talk to somebody, reach out to your friend and tell them what's going on, or tell your parent, tell your sibling, tell someone so they can help you get out of that situation, because a real relationship comes with respect and trust and love. You should want to speak life into each other. You should want to nurture one another and be of service to one another. All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys liked today's story. Please hit that subscribe button if this is your first time watching. And I hope you guys are all doing great. I love you and I miss you immensely. Please take care of yourselves and remember to be kind to one another, because this world needs a hell of a lot more than that. There's plenty of negativity out there. Let's try to be on the positive end of that. All right. Love you guys.